The doorbell echoed through the Regini mansion like a small alarm that only 3 people in that house really understood. Lisa Davis froze in the hallway, one hand still holding a silver tray with fresh coffee. She had been on her way to Matteo Regini's office when the sound rang through the marble corridors. The bell again. Short, firm, confident. She swallowed. Only one person rang the bell like that. Will. She placed the tray on a console table and smoothed her black maid dress, trying to calm her racing heart. The mansion was quiet at that hour. Guards outside, staff already in their quarters, the city far away beyond the iron gates. It felt like the entire house leaned forward to see who was at the door. From the second-floor railing, Matteo Regini watched her. He had not meant to. He had been on the phone with a contact, standing near the balcony that overlooked the foyer, when he heard the bell. Then he saw Lisa, moving toward the door with that nervous little hesitation she never had with anyone else. And just like that, his focus slipped. The call, the numbers, the strategy, all of it faded behind a sharper thought. Who the hell is at my door at this hour for her? Lisa inhaled slowly and walked toward the heavy front door. Her palms were sweating. She wiped them quickly on the sides of her dress, silently begging herself to act normal. It was just dinner. Just dinner with a friend. Just dinner with the Capo of the Regini family. Nothing about that is normal, Lisa. She opened the door. Will Carter stood on the front step, hands in his coat pockets, dark suit perfectly fitted, hair slightly messy in that effortless way that made people trust him a little too fast. He gave her a crooked smile that always tried to look casual and never quite managed it. "Hey," he said softly. "You ready?" Her stomach did a full flip. "Will," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder without even realizing she was doing it. You actually came to the door?" "Well, yeah," he chuckled. "Kind of the idea when you pick someone up for dinner." The word dinner made her chest tighten. It was supposed to be nothing more than that. A distraction. A night outside of the mansion, where she was not the maid, not the girl carrying trays and checking security cameras and schedules. Just Lisa. But there was a problem. A tall, dangerous, dark-eyed problem watching them from above. From the balcony, Matteo's jaw locked. Will, at his door, asking his maid if she was ready. He did not like the sound of that. He did not like the sight of it. He did not like anything about the way Lisa's shoulders tensed and her cheeks warmed under Will's gaze. Matteo had run the Regini empire for years. He had negotiated with men who threatened his business, controlled entire blocks of the city, and kept rival families at a distance just by walking into a room. There was very little in this world that rattled him. But seeing Will at his door for Lisa, that did something to him that he did not have a name for. He stepped away from the balcony before either of them could see him, fingers curling into fists. He should not care. She was his maid. His right hand in the house. Efficient. Quiet. Always on time. She managed his appointments, coordinated staff, made sure his life inside those walls did not collapse into chaos. She was not his. Not officially. Not in any way that anyone could point it on paper. But she felt like his. Downstairs, Lisa shifted her weight from one foot to the other. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" she asked, her voice low. Will tilted his head slightly. "You can still say no, you know. I'm not forcing you to go anywhere." He paused, eyes softening. "You said you wanted a night outside, a normal dinner. Just you and me. If you changed your mind, I'll walk away." She had said that. She had said it on one of those nights when the mansion felt too big and too silent. When Matteo had locked himself in his office and she had stayed outside his door, watching the lights underneath it, wondering what it would be like to belong to him in a way that hurt. She had told Will things she had never told anyone, not all of it, not the dangerous part, not the part that burned every time she looked at her boss, but enough. Enough for Will to see through her and still decide to care. "I didn't change my mind," she said. I don't want to cause trouble." "For who?" he asked. "For you or for him?" Her eyes flicked to the marble floor. "Both." She gave a quick nod instead. Let me just tell him I'm leaving. Will's smile faded a little. You really think he doesn't already know everything that happens under this roof? He asked. Of course he did. Matteo Regini knew every car that passed the gates, every delivery, every staff schedule, every step of every guard. If Will was on the property, Matteo knew. And still, Will had come. Lisa felt someone watching her even though she could not see him. It was a familiar sensation in this house, a weight of eyes that never truly left her whenever Matteo was home. She tried to push it aside. It was only dinner, with a man who was not the one she loved, because the one she loved was the one she could never have. Give me 5 minutes, she murmured to Will. He nodded. I'll wait right here. Lisa closed the door gently and leaned her forehead against it for a second, exhaling. Her heart pounded so hard it almost hurt. She straightened up and turned, only to find Matteo already at the bottom of the staircase, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Her breath caught. He had changed from earlier. Now he wore a dark shirt open at the throat, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, dress pants perfectly tailored. He looked relaxed, but she knew better. There was a certain stiffness in his shoulders, a tension in his jaw that gave him away. You're going out, he said. Not a question. Yes. Her voice was thinner than she wanted. I asked for the evening off. Mrs. Collins adjusted the rota. I approved it, he said. I remember. Of course he did. He had seen the request come through and had signed without looking twice. At the time, it had been a normal thing. Staff had lives. Sometimes they needed a night. He had not known it involved Will standing at his door. With who? He asked, even though he already knew. She swallowed. With Will. Something sharp flashed behind his eyes. Will Carter, he said, like he was confirming a threat. My capo. She forced herself to nod. Yes. He walked toward her, each step echoing softly on the marble. Lisa fought the urge to back away. She never did around him, but tonight everything felt charged. When he stopped in front of her, he was close enough for her to smell his cologne, familiar and warm and impossibly grounding. His gaze swept over her dress, her hair, the light makeup she had dared to put on. You're dressed up, he said. It's just a dress, she whispered. He looked at her for one long, thick second. It's not just anything, he said quietly. Her cheeks heated. There. That was exactly why she was in trouble. The way a simple sentence from him could sink into her chest and stay there. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Matteo blinked slowly, shutting something down in himself. And you're going with him, he said. To dinner. Yes. He nodded once. Fine. The word sounded anything but fine. Her chest pinched. She opened her mouth before she could stop herself. If you don't want me to go, Don't. His voice sharpened. Don't put this on me, Lisa. I approved your night off. You chose how to use it. She flinched slightly. He noticed. The regret was instant, but he kept his face steady. He was jealous, and jealousy looked ugly on him. It made him say things in the wrong tone. Will is my capo. He can't date, not anyone, especially not someone who lives under my roof. That old rule was there for a reason. Lines between business and personal lives got blurred too easily. Feelings turned into weakness, weakness turned into mistakes, and mistakes cost lives. But looking at Lisa now, at the way her eyes dimmed under his words, the rule felt like a cage he had built around himself more than anything else. He exhaled. Be back before midnight, he said. Text me when you arrive. Text me when you leave the restaurant. I want to know where you are. She blinked. You want me to text you? I want you safe, he said. The city doesn't stop being dangerous because you decided to put on a dress and say yes to dinner. She almost smiled. You sound like someone's father, she teased, a weak attempt to lighten the mood. His eyes darkened. Trust me, I don't feel like your father. Her lungs forgot how to work for half a second. Matteo saw the way her breath caught and hated himself for letting that line slip. It was honest, and honesty with her always came out stronger than he planned. He took a small step back. Go, he said, voice rougher. He's waiting. Lisa nodded and turned away before he could see too much. She picked up her coat from the rack, hands shaking slightly, then opened the door again. Will straightened when he saw her, eyes flicking briefly over her shoulder. He caught a glimpse of Matteo at the bottom of the stairs, arms now crossed over his chest. The air between them was thick. "Boss," Will said, respectful, but not shrinking. "Will," Matteo replied. For a moment no one moved. Then Matteo tilted his head a little. "You came to the door yourself," he said. "Didn't send a car." Will's lips curled in a quick half-smile. "Some things you don't delegate." Matteo's jaw tightened. Lisa stepped out, pulling the door closer behind her. "We'll go. I'm going to text when we arrive," she said softly, almost like a promise. Matteo's eyes locked on hers. "I'll be waiting," he said. The door closed. The sound felt louder than it should have. Matteo stood there, staring at the closed wood for a long second, listening to the fading steps, the car doors, the engine starting. Something inside him pushed against the rules he had set for his men, against the logic that had always guided him, against the thin, fragile line he had drawn between himself and the woman he should have never noticed the way he did. He turned around, walked back to the balcony, and watched the black car roll down the driveway toward the gates. One of his security men stepped into view below. "Do you want us to follow them, sir?" the guard called up. Matteo's answer came faster than his good sense. "Yes," he said, discreetly. "I want to know exactly where they are, who gets close, how long they stay." The guard nodded and disappeared toward the garage. Matteo stayed by the balcony, fingers gripping the railing. He had told her to text him so he would know she was safe. That was the excuse. The truth sat heavier in his chest. He wanted to know everything because the idea of Will having her attention for even one evening made something in him burn. And he had no idea that tonight, at that restaurant, he was going to lose control in a way he had not done in years. He also had no idea what she was going to confess, not to him, to Will. The drive away from the Regini mansion felt unreal to Lisa. She had lived and worked there long enough that the outside world sometimes felt like a different life, one that belonged to someone else. Streetlights, busy corners, laughing couples on sidewalks. It all moved past the car windows in soft blurs. Will glanced at her from the driver's seat. "You're quiet," he said. She gave a small laugh. "I'm always quiet." "Not with me," he replied. "With me, you complain about how many times Matteo changes the schedule, how many late-night meetings he calls, how he refuses to eat unless you remind him." Her cheeks warmed. "Don't say it like that. It sounds like I nag him." "Well," Will smiled, "you kinda do, but that's probably the only reason he hasn't dropped dead from stress." She pressed her lips together, fighting back a smile. It was true. If she did not place food on his desk, he would forget. If she did not tell him to sleep, he would keep working. Not because he did not care, but because he cared too much about the empire he carried on his shoulders. "You saw his face, right?" she asked, staring out the window. "Whose?" Will asked, even though he knew. "Matteo's." "Oh, yeah." Will let out a low whistle. He looked like he wanted to cancel the entire night with a single order. Her stomach clenched. "I don't want this to be a problem for you," she said. "You're his capo." "And you're his maid," Will replied, "which is a problem for me." She turned to him, confused. "What?" He kept his eyes on the road. "If you were just a girl I met somewhere else, I would not be doing this tonight," he admitted. "I'd be doing it differently." "How?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I'd be clear about why I'm taking you out," he said simply. Her heart skipped. She looked away, watching the passing buildings. "Will, relax," he added quickly. "I know the rules. I know the situation. I know how he looks at you." She blinked. "How he... what?" Will chuckled softly. "Lisa, I've sat at his table for years. I know how he looks at his enemies, his money, his mistakes, his assets." He glanced at her, his expression gentler. "And I know how he looks at you. It's not the same." Her fingers twisted together in her lap. She knew there was something different in the way Matteo watched her. She felt it every time his gaze lingered, every time he softened his voice only for her, every time he used her first name when he usually stuck to last names. But she had convinced herself it was only in her head. A fantasy that a maid invented to survive long nights in a house that did not belong to her. "You're wrong," she said quietly. "He looks at me like I'm useful, like part of his staff, someone who makes his life easier." "And that bothers you?" Will asked. She laughed without humor. "What bothers me is that it doesn't bother me enough," she said. "I should be grateful. This job saved me. This house gave me security, and instead I walk around wanting something I'm never going to have." There it was, a crack in the calm she always kept in front of everyone. Will looked at her again, studying her profile. "You're in love with him," he said. No drama, no teasing, just truth. Her chest tightened. She could have denied it. She could have laughed it off, called it a silly crush, a childish fantasy. Instead, her eyes filled with tears she did not want. "I don't know what I am," she whispered. "I just know that my heart beats faster when he walks into a room. I know I'm more scared of disappointing him than anyone else. I know I stay up late checking if his office light is still on, even on nights when I'm off. That has to mean something." Will's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Does he know?" he asked. "No," she said quickly. "And he can't. Ever." "Maybe he should," Will replied. "You deserve to be seen." She shook her head. "You don't understand. I'm not the kind of woman he dates. You've seen them. Elegant, perfect, untouchable. They arrive in designer cars and leave before breakfast. I'm the one who cleans the glasses after they go." His jaw clenched. He hated that image. "Maybe he needs someone real instead of all that," Will said. "Maybe that's exactly what he needs, and he's too stupid to see it." She smiled sadly. "I don't want you to talk about him like that," she said. He huffed a quiet laugh. "Figures. You defend him even when I'm trying to defend you." Silence settled in the car for a few moments. The city lights washed over them, softer now as he turned toward a quieter district where the restaurant was. Will spoke again, voice cautious this time. "Listen," he said, "if all this is about him, why did you say yes to dinner with me?" The question sat between them, heavy but gentle. Lisa took a breath. "Because I needed to remember I exist outside of him," she said. "Because I wanted to know what it feels like to sit at a table and have someone look at me like a woman, not like staff. Because you make me laugh when the house is too serious. And because—" She stopped. He waited. "Because I trust you," she finished. "More than I should." Will's chest warmed and ached at the same time. "Then I won't hurt that trust," he said quietly. "No matter what happens tonight." She turned to him again. "That's why I told you yes," she added. "Because I knew you'd understand." He nodded once, eyes forward again. He did understand. Too well. He parked outside the restaurant a few minutes later in front of warm lights and a discreet entrance that promised privacy. Lisa pulled her phone out of her purse. "I should text him," she said. "Of course you should," Will agreed without hesitation. "If he wants you safe, he gets updates. I'd do the same if you worked for me." She sent a quick message. "We arrived at the restaurant. Everything's fine." She waited. The reply came faster than she expected. "Send me the name of the place. And enjoy your dinner, Lisa." It was simple, polite, almost distant, but she could see the control behind every word. She typed the name and hit send. Inside the Regini mansion, Matteo stared at the screen of his phone for a few seconds after the notification appeared. He read the name of the restaurant, passed it to his men without a word, and stood up. "Sir?" one of his guards asked. "You want us to handle this?" He slid his phone into his pocket. "No," he said. "I'll handle it myself." He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair, shrugged it on, and walked out with that quiet, lethal calm that made everyone move out of his way. He told himself he was going to confirm with his own eyes that the place was secure. He told himself he was going to watch from a distance and then leave. He believed none of it. In the restaurant, Lisa and Will were led to a small table near a window. The lighting was soft, the noise level low enough that they could talk without raising their voices. She looked around, almost nervous. "This is too fancy for me," she murmured. "You work in a mansion," Will pointed out. "I think you'll survive white tablecloths." She laughed, feeling some of the weight lifting from her shoulders. They ordered food, and slowly she began to relax. He told her stories about ridiculous mistakes new soldiers made. She told him about the time Matteo tried to cook his own dinner and almost set off the smoke detectors. "For a man who controls half the city, he's really bad with a stove," she said, laughing. Will grinned. "I wish I had seen that." "He was so angry at the pan," she added, wiping a tear of laughter from the corner of her eye. "Like the pan betrayed him. I had to make pasta while he stood there pretending he hadn't almost burned the kitchen." Will watched her, the way she lit up when she talked about Matteo, even through jokes, the way her eyes softened and sparkled. He knew then that tonight was going to change something. He just did not know how. Outside, a black car pulled up across the street from the restaurant. Matteo Regini got out, adjusted his jacket, and looked through the glass windows. There she was, laughing, with his capo. Something inside him snapped a little. He did not storm in, not yet. He stood there for a while, watching, trying to convince himself this was fine. It was just dinner. Will was loyal. Lisa was free to live her life. But when he saw Will lean forward, when he saw Lisa lower her gaze, nervous and vulnerable, his patience thinned. He walked toward the entrance. Tonight, he promised himself he would stay calm. He had no idea how badly he was going to fail. By the time the main course arrived, Lisa felt lighter than she had in months. She had laughed more in 1 hour with Will than she had in weeks. He was easy to talk to. He did not treat her like she was just staff. He did not pretend she was invisible, and he did not stare at her like something he could not touch. He looked at her like a person, a woman. She was grateful for that. She was also painfully aware that every story, every joke, every memory she brought up circled back to the same center. Matteo. She pushed her fork around her plate. "Can I ask you something?" Will said. "Of course. If he walked into this restaurant right now and asked you to leave with him, would you go?" Her heart jumped into her throat. "That's not fair," she whispered. He shrugged lightly. "It's honest. And I think you owe yourself a little honesty." She pressed her lips together. "Yes," she said quietly. "I would go." He nodded, as if that confirmed something he already knew. "And if I asked you the same thing?" He added. "If I said I wanted this to be a real date, that I wanted a chance with you, what would you say?" She stared at him, eyes stinging. "Will, I'm not asking to put pressure," he said. "I just need you to know that if your heart was free, I'd fight for it. I'd ask you to let me be the man who makes you laugh, who drives you crazy, who you text when it's 2 in the morning and you can't sleep." "One man already drives me crazy at 2 in the morning," she said with a weak smile. "I know," he said softly. "And he doesn't even know what he's doing to you." She swallowed hard. "I told you," she whispered. "I didn't say yes to this because I want to start something with you. I said yes because I trusted you." "And you were right," he replied. "You can trust me, enough to tell me the truth, not just half of it." She looked at him, feeling stripped, but in a strangely safe way. He did not want to break her open just to see the pieces. He wanted to help her put them in order. "The truth is," she started. She stopped, fingers gripping the napkin on her lap. He waited. "The truth is that I'm in love with a man who doesn't see me," she said, the words finally spilling out. "I wake up thinking about him. I go to sleep thinking about him. I know what time he'll leave his office. I know how he likes his coffee. I know when he's stressed just by the way he opens a door. And he has no idea what that does to me." Will's chest tightened. "Say his name," he said gently. "At least for yourself." Her eyes filled with tears. "Matteo," she whispered. I'm in love with Matteo Regini, and I hate it. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. Will exhaled slowly, then gave a small, sad smile. I already knew, he said, but thank you for trusting me enough to say it. She laughed shakily. I'm sorry. This isn't exactly a fun dinner. Hey. He leaned in a little. You didn't invite me into a fantasy. You invited me into your reality. I can handle that. She sniffled, nodding. I thought maybe if I went out with someone else, my heart would calm down, she admitted. I thought maybe I'd look across the table and see something other than him in my head. And? He asked. She looked at him honestly. And you're wonderful, she said. Any woman would be lucky to have you. But my heart is stupid. It keeps going back to the wrong place. He smiled, even though it hurt. At least your taste in men isn't completely terrible, he said. He's a good man. Annoying, overprotective, controlling, but good. She laughed again, wiping her cheeks. I thought you'd be angry, she said. What, because I like you? He asked. You being honest with me doesn't make me angry. It makes me respect you more. Most people lie to themselves for years. She relaxed, the tension easing out of her chest. I don't know what to do, she whispered. You don't need to decide anything tonight, he said. Let me be the friend who took you out for dinner. Let me make sure you eat dessert. And if you ever decide to tell him, I'll stand back. She frowned. And if he never feels the same? She asked. Then he's the idiot, not you, Will said. She smiled, but it was fragile. Promise me something, she said. Whatever happens, don't let this ruin what you have with him. He trusts you. He trusts us, Will corrected. He trusts you more than you think. She shook her head, but he did not argue. He knew what he knew. He also knew they were not alone. Because from across the restaurant, near the entrance, a man had just walked in wearing a dark suit and a storm on his face. Matteo. He glanced around once quickly, then his eyes landed on their table. On Lisa, on Will. On the way, Will leaned in, close enough to catch every word. On the way, Lisa's eyes were red like she had been crying. Something inside him went very, very quiet. Then it exploded. He walked toward their table with controlled steps. The kind of measured pace that made his men nervous. The room seemed to shift around him, conversations dropping to a hush as people recognized his presence even if they did not know his name. Lisa's gaze drifted toward the entrance, out of habit more than intention. Her breath stopped. Will, she whispered. He turned. Ah, he said under his breath. That answers the question of what he'd do if he walked in. Matteo stopped at their table. For a second, no one moved. Good evening, he said, voice low and calm in a way that felt dangerous. Boss, Will said, standing up out of respect. Didn't expect to see you here. Matteo's eyes flicked to him, then locked on Lisa. You said you were going to text me when you left, he said. We haven't left yet, she stammered. Clearly, he replied. Her fingers trembled around the napkin. Is everything okay? She asked. No, he said simply. Nothing about this is okay. Will's jaw tightened slightly. With all due respect, boss, he started. Lisa has the night off. We're just having dinner. Nothing illegal. Nothing dangerous. Matteo turned his gaze to him fully now. You're my capo, he said. You're not supposed to be just having dinner with my staff, especially with someone who lives under my roof. The words came out sharper than he intended. People at nearby tables started to watch. Will lifted his chin. There's no line being crossed here, he said. Matteo's laugh was short and humorless. Oh, there's a line, he said. You're just pretending not to see it. Lisa stood abruptly, heart racing. Stop, she said softly. Please, people are staring. Let's talk outside. No, Matteo said. We're going to be very clear right here. His voice was still low, but the intensity in it cut through the buzz of the restaurant. A few waiters froze mid-step. A couple at the next table pretended not to listen and failed. Lisa felt heat rush to her face. Matteo, she whispered. He looked at her, and for the first time that night, The jealousy slipped completely free. "You came to my door," he said to Will. "You rang my bell. You stood there like you had the right to take her out. My Capo, taking my maid to dinner." The words "my maid" hung in the air, heavy and possessive. Will's eyes narrowed. "With all due respect," he repeated quietly, "she doesn't belong to you." The table might as well have disappeared. The restaurant shrank to the three of them. Matteo took a step closer. "You work for me," he said. "Every move you make reflects on me. You don't start relationships. You don't mix business and personal life. That has always been the rule." "So this is about the rules?" Will asked. "Yes," Matteo snapped. "No," Lisa whispered. They both turned toward her. She was shaking, but not from fear, from something sharper. "This isn't just about the rules," she said. "You're angry because he picked me up. Because I said yes to dinner. Because you didn't approve of the idea of me sitting at a table with someone who wasn't you." The room went quiet around them. Matteo stared at her. "Lisa," he said slowly, "you have no idea why I'm angry." "Then say it," she replied, eyes shining. "Don't hide behind your rules. Don't humiliate him in front of everyone if this is about something else." He clenched his teeth. "You're not listening," he said. "He cannot date anyone. Do you understand? He cannot have a relationship. The people around us are targets. Anyone close to him becomes vulnerable. You become vulnerable." "So it's about my safety?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "And that's all?" she pressed. He opened his mouth to say yes. He did not manage it, because Will placed a hand on the back of her chair, grounding himself more than her, and spoke quietly. "She told me something tonight," he said, eyes on Matteo. "Something you should have heard years ago." "Will, don't," Lisa whispered. He shook his head. "She loves you," he said clearly. "That's why she's here. That's why she said yes to dinner, because she's trying to live with that." The words dropped into the space between them like a stone in deep water. Matteo's breath caught. For a second, all the noise of the restaurant disappeared. All he could hear was his own heartbeat. He looked at Lisa. "Is that true?" he asked, voice rough. Her cheeks were wet now. She had not even realized she was crying again. "Yes," she said. "But you were never supposed to hear it." His chest burned. He looked between them, his Capo, steady and strangely calm, and the woman he had tried not to want for far too long, standing with her heart finally out where he could see it. The jealousy that had driven him here crashed against something else. Fear. If he admitted what he felt, he would break his own rules. He would expose her. He would put her in a world that had already taken too much from too many people. If he denied it, he would hurt her in a way he was not sure he could live with. He did the only thing he knew how to do when he was cornered. He got angry. "You should have never used me to fix your feelings for him," he said to Lisa, even though he knew it wasn't fair. "You should have never put him in this position." Will stepped between them slightly. "If you're going to blame someone, blame me," Will said. "I asked her out. I drove to your house. I rang your bell. I don't regret any of it, because at least now you know what you've been pretending not to see." "Stay out of this," Matteo snapped. "No," Will replied. "You don't get to order me around about my own heart." "I already did," Matteo shot back. "Years ago, you accepted the rules when you joined me. No relationships, no distractions. You work for me. You give me your loyalty, your focus, your life, if necessary. You knew exactly what you were signing up for. And I gave you all of that," Will said calmly. "But I don't remember promising to never care about anyone again. Especially not someone who lives under your roof, doing everything for you, while you pretend she's invisible." "I have never treated her like she's invisible," Matteo said, voice low, dangerous. Lisa spoke again, voice trembling. "I never felt invisible," she said. He turned to her quickly. "But I never felt seen as a woman either," she added, the pain in her eyes clear. That cut deeper than anything. His anger flickered, replaced by something softer, more desperate. "Lisa," he started. "Enough," she whispered. Stop arguing with him because of me. Stop using him as a shield. If you want me to leave with you, say it. If you don't, let me finish my dinner in peace." Silence wrapped around them again. Matteo stared at her. The choice was right there. Leave. Let her go. Protect her from his world, even if it meant watching her heart twist itself around a man she thought did not want it, or step forward. Finally, his hands curled at his sides. He opened his mouth. The restaurant door opened. A group of new guests walked in, laughing loudly, breaking the moment. A waiter approached nervously, asking if everything was all right, if they needed anything. Matteo stepped back. "We're done here," he said, voice tight. "Will, you're leaving. Alone. You're coming back to the mansion. We're going to talk." Will looked at Lisa. "And her?" he asked. Matteo's jaw worked. "She's coming with me," he said. Lisa's breath caught. "How?" she whispered. "As what, Matteo? Your maid? Your responsibility? Or something else?" He looked at her like the question physically hurt him. "We'll talk," he said. "Not here, not with everyone listening. You're not staying in this restaurant one more second." He reached for her hand without thinking. She let him take it, even though her heart was shaking. As he led her toward the door, the entire room watched. Not the Mafia boss, not the Capo, just a man dragging his jealousy out into the open. The scandal had started. The answers had not. The car was too quiet. Lisa sat in the passenger seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her heart still struggling to catch up with everything that had just happened. Her napkin from the restaurant was still clenched between her fingers, crumpled and useless. The city lights slid past her window in streaks. She knew the streets around the Regini mansion. She knew the route to the restaurant. She knew the roads that led back home. This was not that route. She glanced at the dashboard. Matteo's profile was hard, focused on the road. His jaw flexed. His hands gripped the steering wheel, the leather pressed under his fingers. She noticed the turn. "Matteo," she said softly, "this isn't the way back to the mansion." "I know," he said. Her throat went dry. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. He did not look at her. "Somewhere we can talk without an audience." The word audience sat heavy. The restaurant, the eyes, the way the entire room had gone silent while he argued with his capo over her. Her cheeks warmed again at the memory. Lisa turned forward, watching the road. He drove out of the busiest streets, away from the crowded center, toward a quieter part of the city. Less traffic, fewer people, taller buildings with dark windows. "You didn't need to drag me out of there," she said after a while, her voice low. "We could have finished dinner and left like normal people." "We are not normal people," he replied. "Then we could have talked outside," she insisted. "I didn't want that scene. I didn't want Will in the middle." "He put himself in the middle," Matteo said. "He defended me," she said. His fingers tightened on the wheel. "I never said I was angry about that," he muttered. "I am angry about everything else." She closed her eyes for a moment. "You humiliated him in front of everyone," she said quietly. "Yes," he agreed. "You humiliated me," she added. His chest felt tight. He did not apologize. Not yet. The word sat somewhere behind his teeth, trapped under all the things he had not said for years. He took a sharp right into an underground parking garage. The security gate opened with a beep. No guard stepped out. No one checked his ID. It was automatic, controlled. A place that already knew him. Lisa frowned, looking around. She had never been here before. He parked in a private space near an elevator. There were no other cars on that level. The concrete walls were clean. The lights were bright but soft, not harsh. He turned off the engine. For a moment, he did not move. Neither did she. The world outside the car was silent. Lisa swallowed. "Are you going to say anything?" she asked quietly. He unbuckled his seatbelt and turned his head toward her, finally meeting her gaze. "Get out of the car," he said. Come upstairs with me. Her heart skipped. Upstairs where? She asked. Somewhere you can look me in the eye without everyone watching, he said. I owe you that. He opened his door and stepped out before she could answer. Lisa stared at his empty seat, at the hollow space where his body had been, at the steering wheel still slightly warm from his hands. She could refuse. She could stay in the car. She could call a cab, call Will, call anyone. She opened the door and stepped out. The elevator doors slid open when Matteo tapped a code on the panel. She stepped inside, standing at the far side of the small metal box while he pressed the button for the top floor. The doors closed. He stood next to her. Not close enough to touch, too close to ignore. She could feel the heat of his body. She could smell his cologne, familiar and steady, grounding and overwhelming at the same time. Is this one of your properties? She asked, just to break the silence. Yes, he said. You never bring people here, she guessed. I never bring anyone here, he confirmed. Her pulse jumped. The elevator climbed in silence, then stopped with a soft ding. The doors opened into a private hallway with dark wooden floors and white walls. A single door waited at the end. Matteo walked first, his steps echoing lightly. He took a key card from his pocket, touched it to the lock, and opened the door. Warm light spilled out. After you, he said. She hesitated for 1 second, then crossed the threshold. The place was not huge like the mansion. It was wide and open, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city at night. A large sofa sat in the middle of the room, a low table in front of it. A kitchen in the corner, modern and sleek, with a few dishes drying on a rack, like someone had cooked there more than once. It felt lived in. Lisa turned slowly. This is yours? She asked. My safe place, he said, when the mansion feels too full of noise, or too empty of it. She looked at him. You come here alone, she said. Always, he said. Until tonight, she added. He held her gaze. Until tonight, he agreed. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of the thin fabric of her dress, the way the air-conditioned room brushed her skin. Matteo closed the door behind them with a soft click and locked it. Her heart knocked against her ribs. He walked past her, took off his jacket and tossed it over the back of the sofa. His shirt was still buttoned, but his collar was open, exposing the base of his throat. He rolled up his sleeves slowly, methodically, as if he needed the ritual to keep his hands busy. Lisa stood in the middle of the room, unsure of what to do. Sit, he said, nodding toward the sofa. Are you going to yell at me? She asked. No, he said. Yell at Will in absentia? She pressed, dry. He gave a short, humorless huff. I already did that in my head, he said. Sit, Lisa. She sat at one end of the sofa. He stayed standing for a few seconds, watching her, then sat at the opposite end, leaving space between them. Not enough space. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. I crossed a line tonight, he said. Her brows rose slightly. She had not expected him to start there. In the restaurant? She asked. In the restaurant, at the door of the mansion. In my own head, he said. Pick one. She stayed quiet. He looked at her. I should have never walked into that restaurant and made a scene like that, he said. You were right. That was not about rules, not fully. She swallowed. Then what was it about? She asked. His jaw flexed. It was about the fact that every time I close my eyes, I see you in my house, he said. You in the hallway, you in the kitchen, you in my office, you bringing me coffee, you telling me to eat, you telling me to sleep, and tonight I saw you with him instead of me. Her breath hitched. That is not your right, she said softly, even though her heart was fluttering. No, he said. It isn't. But it is what I felt. She tightened her hands together, knuckles white. Do you have any idea what it was like, sitting across from him while you told him everything? He asked. She frowned. You heard us? She asked, shocked. No, he said. I came in after. But I saw your face. I saw your eyes. I could tell you'd said something important. Then he looked at me like he knew something I didn't. She looked down. Then he said it, Matteo went on. He said, "You love me," in front of everyone. Her chest squeezed. "I wanted to disappear," she whispered. "I didn't want you to find out like that." "How did you want me to find out?" he asked. "You planned to keep it inside you until when? Until you could not breathe anymore?" "Yes," she said simply. "It was safer." "Safer for who?" he asked. "For you? For me? For him?" "For everyone," she replied. He inhaled slowly. "Look at me," he said. She forced her eyes up. His gaze was sharp and dark and more open than she had ever seen. "Is it true?" he asked. What he said. She could have lied. She could have laughed, called it a misunderstanding, said she had been confused, emotional, dramatic. She did not. "Yes," she whispered, "I'm in love with you." The words felt heavier than in the restaurant. Here, there were no strangers watching, no waiters pretending not to hear. Here, it was just him and her and the truth. He closed his eyes for a moment, his head dropping slightly. "Since when?" he asked quietly. She swallowed. "I don't know," she said. "It wasn't one moment. It was a lot of little things. The way you treat your people. The way you carry the weight of everything and still remember if I had lunch. The way you talk to me when you're tired. The way you never call me staff in front of anyone. The way you say my name." Her voice shook. "It got worse the day you came back with that cut on your eyebrow and still tried to say it was nothing," she went on. "I went to my room and cried like an idiot. That was when I realized it was serious." He opened his eyes again. "You never said anything," he murmured. "What would I even say?" she asked, her hands lifting helplessly. "Hi, boss. The maid is in love with you? I like watching you sign contracts and drink coffee. I like the way you loosen your tie when you're tired." The corner of his mouth twitched, but the weight in his eyes did not fade. "I'm not a woman you date," she added, voice breaking. "I clean your house. I bring your food. I answer your calls. I stand outside your office and make sure no one bothers you. That's my place." "The hell it is," he said quietly. She blinked. He leaned back against the sofa, running a hand over his face. "You think I don't see you," he said. "You think I only see the uniform, the schedule, the tasks. You think I see you as one more name on the payroll." She stayed silent. "You are wrong," he said. Her heart thumped hard. "Then how do you see me?" she asked. He looked at her like the question hurt him. "Too much," he said. "More than I should. More than I ever planned to." Her chest tightened. "Then why didn't you say anything?" she asked, almost angry now. "Why did you let me walk around that house feeling like a fool, watching other women come and go while I learned how you take your coffee and how many hours you sleep?" He stared at her, his eyes dark. "Because every time I started to let myself feel it, I remembered what happens when people like me start relationships," he said. She frowned. "You keep talking about that," she said. "About rules, about danger. About Capo's not being allowed to date. You made that rule. Why?" He looked away, toward the windows, the city stretching outside like a map of mistakes. "Because I watched a man I respected lose everything when he thought love made him untouchable," he said. She listened. "He was Capo before Will," Matteo continued. "He had a woman. She was kind. She was outside the life. He thought he could keep her out of it. He kept her in a nice place, away from our business, away from our enemies. He thought that was enough." Lisa's stomach tightened. "It wasn't," Matteo said. "Someone found out. They grabbed her to get to him, to get to us. He fell apart. He made bad decisions. People died. In the end, she died too. And he never came back from that. He was a ghost after that day, a breathing ghost." His voice was flat, but his hands were clenched. "I was younger," he went on. "I watched it. I watched what love did to him. I watched what losing her did to him. I promised myself I would never let my men get into that position again. I told them relationships were too dangerous, that they couldn't afford that kind of weakness near us." She swallowed. "So you banned your Capo from dating," she said softly. Because of him. Yes, he said. And you banned yourself, she added. He gave a hollow little smile. I didn't ban myself, he said. I just never let anyone get close enough to test the rule. Her eyes stung. Until me, she whispered. He looked at her again. Until you, he said. Silence filled the room. She stood up abruptly, unable to sit still anymore. She walked a few steps toward the windows, pressing her fingers against her arms. So all of this is fear, she said. You're not angry because I went to dinner with him. You're terrified that if you love someone, you'll lose them. That if your Capo loves someone, he'll fall apart if something happens. Yes, he admitted. I am terrified. I know what enemies do when they smell a weak spot. You are a weak spot. Her chest hurt. Then why did you keep me so close? She asked, turning to face him. If I'm a weak spot, why did you let me into your house? Your routines? Your life? He stared at her, throat working. Because I didn't know how to live without that, he said. Without you, there. The words hit her like a wave. You're the first face I see when I walk into the house, he said. You're the last voice I hear before I go to bed. When I'm on a call and I look up, you're there checking the time, making sure I don't skip dinner. When something goes wrong, your name is the one that shows on my phone. I built that into my days without even noticing. Her eyes filled. And then one night, he continued, I looked over the balcony and saw you walking toward the door, fixing your dress, nervous because my Capo was waiting outside. And it felt like someone had taken something from me that I never had the courage to claim. Her breath shook. You don't get to be angry about that, she whispered. You don't get to be angry about something you never claimed. I know, he said. I know I don't have that right, but I am angry anyway. Not at you, not at him, at myself. She stood there, chest heaving, watching him. So what now? She asked. You brought me here. You heard the truth. You told me half of yours. Are you going to send me back to the mansion and act like tonight didn't happen? He stood up. No, he said. He walked toward her slowly, each step careful, as if he was approaching something fragile and explosive at the same time. I can't promise you the kind of life other men can, he said. I can't promise you there will never be danger. I can't promise you I won't be overprotective or controlling. I know who I am. I know who you are too, she said. I can't promise you I won't mess this up sometimes, he added. But I can promise you I am done pretending I don't feel what I feel. He stopped a breath away from her. Her hands trembled at her sides. Say it then, she whispered. His chest rose and fell. I am in love with you, he said. The floor seemed to tilt under her feet. For a long time, he added. Longer than I'm proud to admit. A tear slid down her cheek. He lifted a hand, hesitated for a second, then brushed it away with his thumb. His touch was gentle, careful, like he was afraid of hurting her. I have been in love with you while telling myself I was only protecting an employee, he said. I watched you walk through that house and told myself you were part of the structure, staff, logistics. And then I dreamt about you. I imagined what your voice would sound like if it wasn't calling me sir. Her lips parted. You think I didn't notice when you started wearing your hair differently? He asked. You think I didn't see when you wore that blue dress for the staff party and tried to hide behind a tray? Her breath shook. You looked incredible, he said. I spent the whole night trying not to look at you and failing. A tiny broken sound left her throat. All this time, she whispered. You said nothing. I thought I was keeping you safe, he said. Do you really think I'm safer loving you alone than loving you with you knowing? She asked. He swallowed. I don't know, he said. I only know that watching you with Will tonight felt worse than any threat I've ever handled. She searched his face. Do you think I'm safer pretending I don't exist outside the uniform? She asked. No, he said. She took a breath, feeling like she was stepping off a ledge. Then stop pretending, she said. His hand moved from her cheek to the side of her neck, fingers resting lightly at the base of her hair. His other hand hovered over her waist, not touching yet, asking a wordless question. She nodded, just once. He closed the distance. The first brush of his mouth against hers was not careful. It was desperate. Years of restraint pulling tight and snapping in a second. She gasped softly into the kiss, her hands flying up to his chest, grabbing the fabric of his shirt. He pulled her closer, finally letting his fingers press into her waist, anchoring her to him. Heat flooded through her, not just desire, relief, the feeling of every unsaid word finally finding a place to go. He deepened the kiss, but still kept control, tasting her slowly, deliberately, like he was learning something he planned to remember. She kissed him back with all the longing she had been carrying, letting herself lean into him fully. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing harder. His forehead rested against hers. "This is what I have been trying to avoid," he whispered. She let out a shaky laugh. "You're not doing a great job," she said. He smiled against her lips, a real smile this time. Soft, younger. He opened his eyes and looked at her, really looked at her. "If we do this," he said, "there is no going back." She nodded. "I don't want to go back," she replied. "I've already lived the version where I love you alone. It almost destroyed me. I'd rather live the one where at least we're honest." He cupped her face with both hands now, thumbs tracing her skin. "I can't promise I'll be good at this," he said. "You're good at everything when you decide," she answered, her voice unsteady. "You're good at everything when you decide. You just never decided us." His eyes softened. "I'm deciding now," he said. He kissed her again, slower this time. A promise instead of a storm. His hands moved to her back, holding her close, as if he could shield her from everything outside those walls. Minutes passed like that, with nothing in the world but their mouths, their breaths, their hands. When they broke apart, he pressed a kiss to her forehead, then to her temple. "You're shaking," he murmured. "Everything I ever wanted is suddenly real," she said. "Of course I'm shaking." He exhaled. "Lisa," he said, "I still don't know how to keep you safe and keep you close at the same time. But I know one thing." "What?" she asked. His eyes darkened, not with anger now, but with something possessive and tender at once. "You are not going to dinner with any other man," he said. She lifted her chin. "As your maid?" she asked quietly. "Or as your woman?" The question hung between them. He held her gaze, his hands still holding her as if letting go was not an option. For the first time in his life, the boss who always had an answer found himself silent, not because he did not know what he wanted to say, but because he knew once he said it, nothing in his world would be the same. He brushed his thumb along her lower lip, his eyes dropping there for a second, then back to hers. He did not answer, not yet, and she realized that whatever came out of his mouth next would decide both of their futures. For a long moment, nothing moved. Lisa stood in the middle of the apartment, Mateo's hands on her face, his thumbs still resting near her lips. Her question floated between them like a weight. "As your maid, or as your woman?" He did not answer. His jaw tensed, his eyes searched hers, full of things he had never said. Then something shifted inside him, like a door closing. "Sit," he said softly. "It's late." The words felt like a step backward. She swallowed. The warmth of his hands faded when he let her go. He walked away from her, rubbing the back of his neck, suddenly restless. "I shouldn't have kissed you like that when I was this angry," he muttered. "I don't want you to think it came from rage." "It didn't," she said. He knew that. She knew that. But the question remained hanging in the air. He did not touch it. "I'll drive you back to the mansion," he said. "We'll talk again when my head isn't on fire." Her chest tightened at the way he phrased it, again, like he was already planning another conversation, another chance. Still, the lack of answer sank in. She nodded. The drive back was quiet. No more yelling, no more restaurant, no more public scandal. Just the two of them in a dark car, the city slipping by, their shoulders close but not touching. At the gates of the mansion, the guards opened without a word. Mateo parked at the front entrance and killed the engine. For a moment he stayed still. "Lisa," he said without looking at her. Yes. I meant what I said, he murmured. All of it. Her heart kicked once. Then say the rest, she whispered. He turned his head, finally facing her. She could see the war in his eyes. Duty on one side, fear on the other, her on both. I'm not ready to give you less than you deserve, he said. Right now, I don't know if I can give you what you deserve without putting you in more danger than I can live with. She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together. I've been in danger since the day I walked through your gate, she said quietly. The only difference now is that my heart knows it. Silence. He reached over and gently took her hand in his, just for a second. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I will fix this, he said. I don't know how yet, but I will. She lifted her gaze. Then don't wait until it's too late, she replied. He nodded once. Go inside, he said. Get some sleep. She opened the door, stepped out, and closed it gently. When she turned back, his eyes were still on her. There was 1,000 things he wanted to say pressed into that one look. She gave him a small, tired smile and walked into the mansion. He didn't drive away until the door closed behind her. The mansion felt different the next morning. It shouldn't have. The same floors, the same staff, the same guards near the gate, the same smell of coffee and polished wood. But to Lisa, everything looked sharper. She woke up before her alarm, replaying every second of the night. The restaurant, the fight, the confession, the kiss, the apartment. That last sentence hanging unanswered. Maid or woman? She washed her face twice to calm the redness around her eyes, then put on her uniform. The same black dress she had worn 100 times, the same white collar, the same apron. It fit differently now. Or maybe she just looked at it differently. In the kitchen, Mrs. Collins stopped, spoon in hand, when Lisa walked in for the morning checklist. You look like you barely slept, the older woman said. Did you get home late? Lisa hesitated. A little. Mrs. Collins's eyes narrowed. She had been running big houses for long enough to know when something was off. Did something happen? She asked. Lisa forced a reassuring smile. Just a long night, she said. Nothing I can't handle. Mrs. Collins stared at her for a second longer, then sighed. You don't get paid extra for handling everything, you know, she muttered, returning to the stove. Lisa grabbed the tray with Mateo's breakfast. Once she had carried it automatically, mind on tasks, schedule, routine. Today the tray felt heavier. She walked down the hallway toward his office, her heart beating faster with each step. It wasn't even 8 in the morning, but his door was already slightly open, light spilling into the corridor. She knocked on the frame. Come in, Mateo's voice said. She stepped inside. He sat behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, shirt collar open, eyes on a document that he was clearly not reading. His phone lay face down next to a folder. His tie hung over the back of his chair like he had thrown it there and forgotten. When he looked up and saw her, his expression changed, very slightly, but she noticed. His shoulders lowered a fraction. His eyes softened, just for a second. Good morning, she said. Good morning, he answered. He looked at the tray in her hands. You don't have to do that, he said. I can ask someone else. For some reason, that stung. I always bring your breakfast, she said, placing the tray on the edge of his desk. It's part of my job. He watched her carefully. Last night we talked about not pretending, he said. I don't want you to wake up and act like nothing happened. That would be easier, she murmured. Maybe, he replied. For you? For both of us, she said. He stood up slowly, coming around the desk. He didn't come too close, but closer than a boss should stand to his maid. Is that what you want? He asked. She stared at his shirt buttons. I want you to stop asking questions you're not ready to answer, she said quietly. His jaw tightened. I told you I'm in love with you, he said. That wasn't a question. And then I asked if I was your maid or your woman, she replied, finally lifting her eyes to his. That wasn't a question either. It was a choice. He exhaled through his nose, frustration and desire and fear all mixed together. "You're asking me to put a label on something in the span of a few hours," he said. "Something I've been fighting for years." "I'm asking you not to leave me in the middle," she said. His hand moved, almost like it had a will of its own. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face and tucked it behind her ear. It was too intimate for a man who hadn't decided what to call her yet. "You're not in the middle," he said softly. "Not for me." "Then where am I?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he did something that surprised both of them. He leaned down and pressed a quick kiss to her forehead, gentle, warm, quiet. It was the kind of gesture that didn't belong to a boss and employee. "I have a meeting in 15 minutes, he said, stepping back. "You should eat something too. You look pale." She swallowed the lump in her throat. "I always look pale," she said. "Not like this," he replied. She turned away before he could see how close she was to crying. "I'll be in the hallway if you need anything," she said. "I always need something," he murmured. "That's the problem." She walked out, closing the door softly behind her. The next few days felt like living in a house with a live wire running through the walls. Nothing exploded, but everything hummed. Matteo and Lisa fell into a new rhythm without talking about it. He stopped pretending she was just part of the background. He called her by her first name more often. He asked how she was sleeping. He stayed in the kitchen with her while she reheated his late dinners, leaning against the counter, eyes on her instead of his phone. Some things didn't change. He still worked late. He still spoke in low, serious tones on phone calls. He still sat in long meetings with his men, discussing territories and alliances. But now, he noticed other things. He noticed when she changed her earrings. He noticed when she wore a slightly different shade of lipstick. He noticed when she rubbed her neck at the end of a long day. He noticed everything. Lisa noticed too. She noticed the way his hand brushed her lower back when he passed behind her in the kitchen, a simple, steady touch that said, "I see you without words." She noticed that he never raised his voice to her, even when he was tired and stressed. She noticed that he seemed to breathe easier when she was in the same room. There were almost moments everywhere. Almost kisses in the hallway when they stepped too close. Almost hugs at the bottom of the staircase when she brought him his forgotten phone. Almost confessions at midnight when she caught him staring at her with an expression he quickly buried. And still he didn't say the word. Woman. He did not call her that. Not yet. Will came back to the mansion 2 days after the restaurant incident. He walked through the front doors with a neutral expression and a bruise forming near his jaw that had nothing to do with a fight. It looked like someone had been clenching their teeth near him for a little too long. Lisa spotted him from the upper hallway as he spoke with one of the guards near the entrance. Her chest tightened with a rush of guilt and relief. She had not seen him since Matteo pulled her out of the restaurant. She took a breath and walked down the stairs. "Will," she called softly. He looked up. A slow, crooked smile tugged at his mouth. "So you're alive," he said. "That's good. I wasn't sure if he locked you in a tower after dragging you out of there." She let out a nervous laugh. "He doesn't have a tower," she said. "You know what I mean," he replied. He walked toward her, hands in his pockets. "How are you?" he asked. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Fair answer," he said. "He's been interesting these last 2 days." She frowned. "Interesting how?" "On a scale of 1 to I'm going to kill my capo for breathing near the wrong people," Will said. "We hit some new numbers." She winced. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "Don't apologize," he said. "I poked the bear on purpose." She looked at him, worried. "Did he treat you badly because of me?" she asked. Will shook his head. "No," he said. "He treated me badly because of him. Big difference. And he didn't cross any lines he can't come back from. I know how he works. I knew what I was doing when I pushed that button." She lowered her eyes. "I told him everything," she whispered. "About you. About how I feel. About the rest." "I heard," Will said dryly. "I was there when I turned your love life into a table topic." She groaned softly, covering her face with one hand. I wanted to disappear, she said. You handled it, he said. Better than both of us, to be honest. She dropped her hand. What about you? She asked. You wanted this to be a date. I basically used you to say goodbye to something that never started. He smiled, but it was softer now. I didn't want it to be a pity date, he said. I wanted it to be real. But I also knew, somewhere in that thick head of mine, that your heart was already full. I just hoped there might be a corner. Her eyes filled with guilt. Will, relax, he said calmly. I'm not broken. I'm not going to drink myself to death on your account. I've seen worse. I've survived worse. She exhaled. Is there anything I can do to make it less weird? She asked. He thought for a second. Yeah, he said. Don't disappear when you see me in a hallway. Don't treat me like I was a mistake. Don't act like we shared some big drama. We had dinner. You told the truth. That's it. She nodded, relief loosening her shoulders. I can do that, she said. He studied her for a moment. He told you? Will asked suddenly. Told me what? She replied. How he feels? Will said. She hesitated. Yes, she admitted. He told me. Not everything. Not with all the words I wanted. But enough. And he kissed you, Will said, tone matter of fact. Her cheeks flushed. How do you know? She asked. Will raised a brow. You really think he dragged you to his secret apartment and brought you back looking like that for a handshake? She blinked. Secret apartment? She repeated. He snorted. Of course he took you there, he said. He thinks he's subtle. Her eyes widened. You knew about that place? She asked. I know about all his safe houses, Will replied. I'm his capo. That's my job. She frowned. Then why did you let him act like bringing me there was some big forbidden move? She asked. Because for him it was, Will said simply. He doesn't go there with anyone. He sleeps there when the mansion feels too loud or too empty. Something warm spread through her chest. Lisa, Will added, more serious now, you should know something, not to make it harder, but because you deserve to know. She stiffened slightly. What is it? She asked. He glanced around. The hallway was empty. You think he's just your boss, Will said. You think he only cares because you run his house, but there's more. She frowned. More what? She asked. You know your sister's medical bills? He asked quietly. Her heart dropped. How do you know about that? She whispered. Because I'm the one who moves some of the money, he said. You think those discounts came from charity? You think those sudden adjustments in the hospital system were a miracle? She stared at him, frozen. What are you saying? She asked. I'm saying he's been paying what your insurance doesn't cover for years, Will said. Quietly, through another account, so you wouldn't see his name on anything. Her throat closed. That's not true, she breathed. Will held her gaze. He started the week after you asked Mrs. Collins for an extra shift, he said. You looked like you hadn't slept in days. He called me into his office, threw a file on the desk and said, Fix this. She doesn't ask for help. I don't want her worrying about this again. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. He never said anything, she whispered. He wasn't doing it for thanks, Will said. He was doing it because he's completely gone for you and refuses to admit it in full sentences. A tear slipped down her cheek, then another. Will reached into his jacket and handed her a handkerchief. He also refused 2 job offers you never knew you got, he added casually. She looked up, stunned. What? She croaked. A contact from another family asked if you'd be willing to manage their household, Will said. Better money, different city. He told them you were unavailable, then increased your salary without telling you why. Said it was an adjustment to match standard rates. She pressed the handkerchief to her face. And there was that time with the guy who kept hanging around the staff entrance, Will continued. He pretended it was about security. It wasn't. She swallowed hard. What happened? She asked. Guy had a crush on you, Will said. Kept trying to talk to you when you left after your shift. You probably thought he just got bored and stopped showing up. She nodded. She remembered someone, vaguely. A man who had looked at her a little too long a few times. Then he had stopped coming. He didn't get bored, Will said. Matteo saw him, didn't like his face, had a little chat. The guy suddenly decided to find interest in another neighborhood. Lisa's legs felt unsteady. She leaned against the banister. He's been doing all of that, she whispered. And I thought I was just convenient. Will smiled, but there was no teasing in it now. Only a quiet kind of understanding. You're not convenient, he said. You're the exception to his own rules. Her tears came faster. That makes this worse, she said, voice breaking. Why? He asked. Because if he cares that much, why can't he just say it? She whispered. Why can't he look at me and say, you're my woman, instead of leaving me halfway between Maid and something more? Will sighed. Because he's Matteo, he said simply. He doesn't know how to be half mafia boss and half man in love. He only knows how to be one at a time. And right now, he's stuck in the switch. She laughed weakly through the tears. That sounds like a very expensive problem, she said. Lucky for you, he has money and stubbornness, Will said. And you have more power than you think. She dabbed her eyes. Sometimes I think I should just leave, she said quietly. Quit. Find another job. Start somewhere else. Stop waking up in his house and going to sleep with him 5 doors away. Will's jaw tensed. Do you really want that? He asked. I don't know what I want, she admitted. I just know that living like this, half in, half out, hurts. He nodded slowly. I get that, he said. But let me tell you something, Lisa. If you walk out of that gate, you're not the only one who'll be hurting. He'll survive, she muttered. He'll operate, Will corrected. He'll sign things. He'll give orders. He'll breathe. That's not the same as living. She looked at him, startled by the word choice. You think I'm exaggerating, he added. You're wrong. I've seen what happens when he loses someone he lets close. You leaving by choice might hurt him in a different way than losing someone to violence, but it's still a loss. And this time it would be because he failed to fight for something he actually wants. Her fingers gripped the handkerchief. I don't want to be his weakness, she whispered. You already are, Will said. You just haven't decided if you're going to be the weakness that destroys him or the weakness that makes him human. Her eyes burned. That's a lot of responsibility, she said. Welcome to falling in love with a mafia boss, he replied dryly. She let out a choked laugh. He softened his voice. Look, he said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not my place. But if you want my opinion, I do, she said. Give him a little time, Will said. Not years. He had years already. I mean days, weeks. Let him figure out how to say what he's been showing. If he still leaves you hanging in the middle after that, then yeah, leave. And I'll help you pack. She smiled weakly. You'd help me leave him? She asked. I'd help you live, he said, even if it means watching him learn a lesson the hard way. Footsteps echoed at the end of the hallway. Both of them looked up. Matteo stood near the corner, half-shadowed, expression unreadable. It was impossible to say how much he had heard, but Lisa saw something in his eyes, a tightness, a flash of pain, something wounded and sharp. Her stomach dropped. How long had he been there? Will straightened, his face sliding into a neutral mask. Boss, he said, nodding. Will, Matteo replied. He stepped fully into the hallway. His gaze moved from Will to Lisa and back again. Am I interrupting something? He asked. Yes, Will said easily. We were gossiping about you. Lisa shot him a look. Matteo's lips almost twitched, but his eyes never softened. I need you in my office, he told Will. Now? Will asked. Now, Matteo said. Will nodded. See you later, he said to Lisa, deliberately casual, like they had been talking about nothing more than kitchen schedules. She gave a small nod, unable to speak. Will walked past Matteo and disappeared down the corridor. That left her alone with the man who might have just heard her say out loud that she should quit. He didn't move for a second. Then he took a few slow steps toward her. You're thinking about leaving, he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Her heart pounded. "Were you listening?" she asked. "Long enough," he said. Humiliation climbed up her throat like a burn. "I didn't mean for you to hear that," she said. "Clearly," he replied. She swallowed. "It was just a thought," she said. "An option. I'm allowed to think about my life." "You are," he said. "You're allowed to do whatever you want." He came to a stop in front of her, closer than the safe distance he usually tried to keep. "But you're not allowed to walk out of my house without looking me in the eye and telling me you're going," he added. "I won't find out through someone else that you quit. Do you understand me?" Her eyes stung again. "That's what bothers you?" she whispered. "How you'd find out?" "No," he said. "What bothers me is that you're willing to throw away everything we've been through instead of making me finish what I started." She stared at him, breath thin. "What did you start?" she asked. He looked down at her uniform, at the handkerchief still clenched between her fingers, at the faint redness around her eyes. "You told him you don't know if you can live half in, half out," he said. "You're right. You can't, and I can't either." Her heartbeat hammered against her ribs. "Then decide," she said. He exhaled slowly, like a man at the edge of a decision that would change everything. "Come to my office tonight," he said. "After dinner, when the staff is in their quarters and the house is quiet." Her throat tightened. "Why?" she asked. "Because I'm done letting you guess," he replied. "I'll give you an answer. One you can live with, or walk away from." She nodded slowly. "What if I can't handle the answer?" she asked. He held her gaze, his eyes dark and steady. "Then we'll both find out how much it hurts," he said. He turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the hallway, heart racing, mind spinning. Behind her, the big windows at the end of the corridor showed the city outside, wide and open and full of exits. In front of her at the far end of the hallway, his office door waited. For the first time since she entered that house, Lisa Davis realized she stood at a crossroads. Stay and hear him say the words that could finally put a name on everything between them, or get out before he had the chance. Tonight, there would be no middle ground. The clock on the mansion wall ticked louder than usual. Lisa stood in her room, hands pressed to the smooth fabric of her dress. She had changed out of her uniform. She couldn't go to Mateo's office still dressed as the maid he claimed she wasn't just anymore. But she didn't dare dress like a woman meeting the man she loved either. So she chose something simple. Soft blue, knee-length, sleeves brushing her elbows. Something safe. Something halfway. Halfway, she told herself, was always where she lived with him. After tonight, she wouldn't, one way or another. She checked the time again. 9:57 p.m., 3 minutes before she was supposed to go to his office. Her legs felt too light. Her heart felt too heavy. She could still leave. Walk down the back stairs, through the garden, out the staff gate. She could be halfway down the block before anyone noticed. But she stayed, because running from him would hurt worse than hearing anything he had to say. She stepped out into the hallway. The mansion was quiet, guards outside, kitchen cleaned, staff in their quarters. A hush fell over everything after 10 p.m., but tonight it felt like the walls were holding their breath. When she reached the double doors of his office, she hesitated. She raised her hand, lowered it, raised it again. The doors opened on their own. Mateo stood inside. He wore no jacket. Just a charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled up, the top 2 buttons undone. His tie was draped over a chair, forgotten. His hair was slightly undone in the way it got when he ran his fingers through it too many times. He had been waiting and worrying. He said nothing for a moment as he looked at her, slowly from her face to her dress, back to her eyes, like he was memorizing her before he even started speaking. Then, "Come in," he said, voice low. She stepped in. The doors closed behind her with a heavy click. Suddenly she was aware of every inch of the room. The soft lamp on the corner table, the faint smell of leather and his cologne, the whiskey glass untouched on the desk. The window behind him showed the city in tiny glittering lights. He watched her like he was trying to read her thoughts. I almost thought you wouldn't come, he said quietly. I almost didn't, she replied honestly. Why did you? He asked. She took a slow breath. Because leaving without hearing your answer would have been worse than anything you could say. His eyes softened. He nodded once. Sit, he said. She didn't. Instead, she asked, Do you want me to sit? He hesitated. No, he admitted. I want you to stand. I want to look at you while I say this. She swallowed. He walked around the desk, stopping in front of her, but not too close. Enough space to talk, not enough to run. You asked me something, he said, and I didn't answer. I remember, she whispered. His jaw flexed. Are you my maid? He said slowly. Or my woman? Her breath caught. He took a step closer. You can't be both, he said. Not for me. Not anymore. She felt her pulse in her fingertips. Then what am I? She asked. His eyes darkened. I want you as my woman, he said. Not my maid. Not my employee. Not someone who stands 3 steps behind me. I want you with me. Her chest tightened painfully. But he wasn't finished. He took another step, now close enough that she felt his warmth. I didn't say it earlier because I was afraid, he said. Afraid of losing you like I lost others. Afraid of dragging you into my world and watching it break you. Afraid that loving you would destroy the parts of you I need intact. She blinked hard to stop the tears. But I am more afraid of losing you because I didn't say anything. He continued. I am more afraid of waking up one day and realizing you left because I spent years making you feel invisible. She shook her head. I never felt invisible. You did, he said. You just learned to hide it better than I learned to see it. Her lip trembled. He reached out slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted, and rested a hand on her cheek. She leaned into it. I can't protect you from everything, he whispered, but I can love you better than I've ever loved anyone, if you let me. She placed her hand over his. I've spent years loving you in silence, she whispered. I don't want silence anymore. His breath left him in one long exhale. Then stay, he said. For tonight, she asked. For all the nights, he answered. Her eyes blurred. And my job, she whispered. We'll change roles, he said. You won't work under me. You'll stay here, but not as staff. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who questions it. He swallowed, voice lower now. I care about you. A tear slipped down her cheek. Mateo. He brushed the tear away slowly. There's something else, he said. You need to know this part. Her breath tightened. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small black folder. He returned to her, offering it without touching her hands. What is it? She asked. Proof, he said simply, of everything I've been doing without telling you. She opened it. Bills, transfers, security assessments, reports, hospital statements for her sister, adjusted staff salaries, notations in his handwriting, short direct orders. Take care of this. She doesn't need to know. Fix the insurance gap. Increase security around the staff entrance. Reject the offer. She's not leaving this house. She hasn't eaten today. Remind her quietly. Her vision blurred. She closed the folder, clutching it to her chest. You did all of this behind my back? She whispered. He ran a hand through his hair, tension tightening his shoulders. Yes, he said. Because I didn't want you to think you owed me anything. Because loving you quietly was the only way I knew how. She took a shaky step toward him. And now? She asked. He looked at her, completely unguarded. Now, he said, I want to love you out loud. Her heart broke open. She stepped into him, closing the last inch of space. He inhaled sharply when she touched his chest, her fingers trembling as they curled into his shirt. Say it again, she whispered. He lifted her chin gently with his fingers. You're my woman, he murmured. If you want to be. Her eyes fluttered shut, tears falling freely now. I want to be, she whispered. He didn't kiss her right away. He held her face in both hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks, as if giving her one last chance to stop him. She didn't. She rose onto her toes. He met her halfway. The kiss was slow, nothing like the desperate one in the apartment. This one had certainty, intention, a promise. His hands slid to her waist, her fingers tangled in his shirt. He pulled her closer until their bodies aligned, until she melted into him like she had been meant to fit there. He kissed her like he had been starving for years. She kissed him like she had finally come home. When they pulled apart, breathless, foreheads touching, he whispered against her lips, "I'm not letting you go." "Good," she whispered back. "I wasn't planning to leave." He smiled, small, real, only for her. He stepped back, just enough to reach into his back pocket. When his hand returned, there was a small silver key in it. "What's that?" she asked softly. "A key to my private apartment," he said. "The one no one goes to, the one only you have ever been inside." Her breath caught. "Why are you giving it to me?" she whispered. "Because you're not halfway anymore," he said. "You're with me." He placed the key in her hand and closed her fingers around it. "And whatever happens next," he added quietly, "we handle together." She held the key tightly. Her future had just changed shape. No more silence, no more halfway, no more guessing. She had chosen him, and he had chosen her back. A knock sounded on the office door. Mateo's expression tightened. Lisa turned just as Will stepped inside without waiting to be invited. He paused when he saw them standing close, her chest rising against Mateo's, the key in her hand. "Well," Will said slowly, lifting a brow, "I guess this means we're redefining workplace boundaries." Mateo muttered something under his breath. Lisa flushed, heart racing. Will's expression shifted to something more serious. "I came to warn you," he said to Mateo. "We have a situation." Mateo's hand instinctively closed around Lisa's. "What happened?" Mateo asked. Will looked at them both. "You two need to hear this together," he said. For one terrifying second, the world froze. Lisa's fingers tightened around the small silver key Mateo had just placed in her hand. His palm still rested on the curve of her waist, steady, protective, newly certain. Will stood at the office door, eyebrows raised, expression caught somewhere between amused and concerned. Mateo didn't move. Neither did Lisa. Only her heart did, beating hard enough to echo in her ears. Will broke the silence first. "Relax," he said, lifting both hands slightly. "It's not a crisis, not the kind that makes the news." Mateo's jaw flexed. "Then what kind is it?" Will's eyes flicked to Lisa, then back to Mateo. Then he stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind him. Whatever he was about to say, he didn't want the hallway hearing. "It's about the staff," Will said simply. Lisa blinked. "The staff?" Mateo's hand slid from her waist to her lower back, not pushing her away, but anchoring her there, at his side. "What about them?" he asked. Will hesitated a moment, choosing his words. "They know," he said. Lisa's breath caught. Mateo didn't react for 2 seconds, then murmured a very quiet, very controlled, "Know what exactly?" Will gestured between the two of them. "This." Heat flooded Lisa's face. Mateo stiffened. "How?" Mateo asked sharply. Will shrugged. "You brought her to your private apartment. You came back at 2 in the morning. She walked out of your office today wearing a dress instead of a uniform. You touched her hair in the hallway." He paused. "Also, Mrs. Collins saw you smile once." That alone raised suspicion. Lisa let out a small strangled noise. Mateo muttered, "I didn't smile." "You did," Will said. "Half of one side, a micro-smile. But for you, that's basically a carnival parade." Lisa's laugh escaped before she could stop it. Mateo shot her a look, stern, but his eyes softened the second he saw her smile. "So?" Will spread his arms. "The staff is making bets." "Bets?" Mateo repeated, horrified. Lisa covered her mouth. Will nodded. "On when you're going to make it official," Lisa whispered, mortified. "Oh, God." Mateo exhaled slowly. What exactly do they think is happening? They think, Will answered, that you're in love with her. Matteo opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Lisa's heart jumped, eyes wide. Will raised one eyebrow. Should I correct them? Matteo turned to Lisa. She wasn't laughing anymore. She was looking at him with a softness that reached into places he had never allowed anyone to touch. He didn't look away. No, Matteo said quietly, answering Will without breaking her gaze. Don't correct them. Will smiled just a little. Good. Saves me the trouble. Lisa's cheeks warmed, her pulse fluttering. The moment felt fragile and enormous at the same time. But that's not why I came, Will added, stepping closer with a more serious tone. I thought you two should know before the rumors hit your office doors tomorrow. And? Matteo prompted. Will leaned against the edge of a chair. And the staff is happy for her, he said simply. For both of you. There's no resentment, no jealousy. They actually like this. Lisa blinked fast. They like this? She asked in disbelief. Will nodded. You're good to them. You're fair. You work harder than anyone. They want you happy. And everyone sees how he looks at you, so it's not exactly shocking. Matteo's eyes slid sideways to Lisa again. Her lips curved, shy and warm, and something tightened in his throat. Will pushed off the chair. That said, I'm going to bed. I'm exhausted from emotionally supporting both of you for a week. He opened the door halfway, then glanced back. But for what it's worth, I think you two finally stopped lying to yourselves. Matteo glared, but his ears were slightly pink. Lisa ducked her head, smiling. Will winked and stepped out, closing the door behind him. It was quiet again, but a different quiet now. Soft, charged, intimate. Matteo turned to Lisa fully, standing close enough that she felt his breath. He reached out and gently took her hands, pulling her toward him until her chest brushed his. Her fingers slid up his arms instinctively, resting on the warm fabric of his sleeves. You heard him, Matteo murmured. The house knows. Her voice was barely a whisper. Are you worried? He cupped her jaw, his thumb tracing a slow line along her cheek. No, he murmured, because for the first time, I'm not hiding you. Her breath stopped. Lisa, he continued, voice lower now. If you stay with me, truly stay, this won't be secret. Not in this house, not in my world. Everyone will know who you are to me. Her chest squeezed. And who am I to you? She asked softly. He didn't hesitate this time. You're the woman I love, he said, his voice steady, intimate, deep. Not my maid, not my employee, my woman. Her eyes filled instantly. He brushed her tears with his thumbs, leaning closer. And I want you beside me, he added. Not behind me, not in the shadows, beside me. She let out a shaky exhale. I never thought I'd hear you say that, she whispered. I should have said it years ago, he murmured back. Her fingers curled into his shirt. Then say it again, she whispered. His forehead touched hers. I love you. Her hands trembled against him. I love you too, she said, voice breaking with relief and joy and disbelief. He kissed her. Not like the desperate kiss in the apartment. Not like the hungry kiss in his office. This one was slow and warm and deep, full of gratitude, promise, and a love finally spoken aloud. His hand slipped around her waist, pulling her close. Her fingers slid up his neck, threading through the back of his hair. His lips brushed hers again and again, tasting every piece of the years they had lost. When they finally stopped to breathe, he rested his forehead against hers again, whispering, I want to show you something. She blinked. What? He took her hand, firm, certain, and led her through the office door, down the hall, and toward a staircase she rarely used. Matteo, where are we going? She asked breathlessly. To make sure you understand this, he said. All of this, my house, my world, my life, you're not on the outside anymore. He opened a door at the top of the stairs, the rooftop terrace. She had never been up here. The city stretched around them, lights twinkling like a sea of stars scattered across the skyline. The night air was cool, brushing against her skin. The space was beautiful, wide tiles, iron railings, quiet plants in stone pots, lanterns glowing softly. She stepped out, stunned. "Matteo, this is beautiful." "It's my favorite place," he said. "I come here to think, to breathe." She turned to look at him. "And you brought me here?" "I'm bringing you everywhere now," he said simply. She swallowed hard. He walked toward her, stopping behind her at the railing. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her against him, chin resting lightly on her shoulder. The city wind lifted her hair. His warmth surrounded her. For the first time, everything felt right. Natural, inevitable. "Lisa," he murmured near her ear, voice soft and raw. "This life is complicated, but loving you, that part is easy." She closed her eyes, letting herself melt into him. "I don't want easy," she whispered. "I want you." He tightened his arms around her, a quiet exhale escaping him, half relief, half something deeper. "Then you have me," he said. "Not in pieces, not in silence, all of me." She turned in his arms, her hands sliding up his chest. He kissed her again, slow, warm, unhurried, and the world below them faded into nothing. After a long moment, she broke the kiss and whispered against his lips, "So what happens now?" He smiled slightly, brushing a finger under her chin. "Now," he said, "we stop living halfway." Her heart fluttered. "And tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he murmured, "everyone will know you're mine." She laughed softly, breathless. "And what will they say?" "They'll say," he pulled her close again, lips near her ear, "that Matteo Regini finally got one thing right." She smiled into his shoulder, warm, safe, loved. Below them, the city glowed. Above them, the sky stretched wide and open. Between them, the last walls had fallen. Lisa Davis was no longer the maid of the mansion. She was the woman the Mafia boss loved, with all the intensity, devotion, and tenderness he had once tried so hard to bury. And this time, he wasn't letting go.